today is it segues into a suggestion. The Thompson Center and its architect Helmut Jahn have a whole wall dedicated to them inside of my favorite museum in Chicago's architecture section. If you were to do one more thing in Chicago, my biggest advice to you is go to the Art Institute of Chicago. That is one of the best things, or that is one of the best art museums in the country. It is one of the best in the world. And whenever I say those two words, art museum, if your first thought is, no, I don't like art museums, I thought I was gonna have to go to one this time, you should go to the Art Institute because it's going to change your mind about art museums. Currently, by Vincent van Gogh, there are 3 paintings on display by him. One of his self-portraits, the first painting he did of the view from the bedroom, and sunflowers is there. They also have stuff by Salvador Dali, Pablo Picasso, Frida Kahlo, Claude Monet, Georgia O'Keeffe. American Gothic is there, that's the Pitchfork painting. The Diner at Nighttime, Nighthawks by Hopper is there. And of course, it's not a rant about the Art Institute without talking about Sunday on the Grand by George Seurat. That is a pointillist painting that causes the existential crisis in Ferris Bueller's best friend Cameron. It's the one he stares at and the painting stares back. That is at the Art Institute. Highly recommend that museum, and it's one of the best things Chicago has to offer. Aside from the Wendella Boat Tour. Let's talk about this building. Right next to us, you're going to see a long building called the Domain. Talking about it architecturally, this is called the Prairie style of architecture. Now, the Prairie style, what sets it apart from a lot of other big city styles is oftentimes, whenever you design a big building in a city like this, you're going to focus on the vertical lines on the outside of the design. Vertical lines are going to draw your eye up and they make the building look taller. With the Prairie style, it's the opposite of what I just described. You're trying to replicate the long, flat prairie of the Midwest, where we are right now, so you accentuate the horizontal lines. It draws your eyes forward instead of up, making the building appear flatter and longer. And the guy that really popularized the Prairie style, this is not his building. He did not do a lot of big corporate buildings. I think he only did 2 in his career. Frank Lloyd Wright. Frank Lloyd Wright really popularized the Prairie style. If you want to see a lot of Frank Lloyd Wright work, I highly recommend you check out the suburb where he lived called Oak Park, Illinois, or go to Hyde Park in Chicago proper. Go to the Roby House. He designed that one as well if you're a big fan of Frank Lloyd Wright, but that's the only time I will reserve on this tour for Frank Lloyd Wright. People talk enough about that guy. But now, let's talk about some history. So to start with the history of Chicago, I'm going to start in the year 1673 with 2 guys I mentioned quickly by the name of Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet. Jacques Marquette was a Jesuit priest, and Louis Joliet was a cartographer and an outdoorsman. And they were 2 Frenchmen that were tasked by France to find a trade route from Canada through the Mississippi River into the Pacific Ocean. Picturing a map of the United States, you'll realize the trade route I just described doesn't exist. They found a trade route to the Gulf of Mexico through the Mississippi, and on their way to the Gulf,